Okay, so let's now work on Python on Jupyter platform. So before I show you all this functionalities of Python here, let me just quickly show you that how you can work with Jupyter. So from the installation chapter, we have already seen that how you can open up your Jupyter using Anaconda. Once you will open it, it will show you up your current files, which is present in your current directory of Anaconda. Now, the way you have to open a Jupyter notebook from here is you need to click on New. Now, as soon as you will click on New, you will find some options. For example, for me, there are multiple options because I have created, but you can just go with your default Python. It will be showing you like Python default 3.x or whatever. So just choose whatever is for you. So it doesn't matter. Okay. So for me, everything is Python 3.x. Now, this is how your Jupyter notebook will look like. Let me make it big so that you can easily understand this. So this is a cell. The thing which you are seeing where my cursor is available is a cell. This is where we can write any sort of code or whatever we want to. So here, let's say I want to write some sort of code. Okay, I can just say that I'm just going to write a code. Let's say variable a. So this is how you create a variable in Python. Anyway, I'm going to show you in detail in the next part, but just to give you an idea. So let's say I'm saying that variable a, I'm assigning the value 2 to it. Now, if I want to execute this, I have to click on Shift Enter. Okay, Shift Enter. So this Shift Enter is going to now return me the value of, basically it's going to assign the value of 2 to my variable a, and it have executed this code. If you want to print this value, you can just say print. Print is the statement used to print out the value of any variable, and now you can just say, let's say a. So what it's going to do, it is going to now print out the value of a here. And you can notice that as soon as I say Shift Enter, it automatically opens my new cell where I can write the code. Now, there's another problem. What if I want to change some value here? Let's say I have assigned initially the value of a as 2, but before this print statement itself, I want to change the value of a as 3. Now, where I can plug it in? One way is that I can directly write it in here. Okay, I can do it. But let's say I don't want to do it here. I want to do it in a different cell. So can I add an extra cell? Yes, you can do that. So for that, you need to click on Alt, Alt, and Enter. As soon as you will do this, it is going to execute my current statement, and below that it will immediately open up a new cell for you. So as you can see here, now I am assigning value of a as 2. First I need to execute it, and now if I re-execute print a, it is going to print out the value of basically 3 for me. Now there is a small change now. Right now I have mentioned here that I have made the value of a as 3, but before that, let's say I want to make it, I want to tell, because I want to make my code to be more readable. So I want to specifically mention that, okay, what is the value of a I'm assigning here, right? I'm changing my value. I want to put a comment so that any user who is reading my code should be able to immediately understand that, yeah, I'm trying, my intention is to change the value of a. So I want to write it that change the value of a. But if I do this, it will throw me an error. Okay, it will throw me an error because this is a text entry. Now it is saying that invalid syntax, what you have just written. So now the problem is because this text entry is not understood by Python, right? Because this is a comment which you are trying to put. You're not basically saying that, okay, do this, right? Change the value of a is not a Python syntax. It will not be able to understand that. So in order to handle this, you put a hash in front of it. Now you can see a color change happening here. Now this means that it's a comment. It's an English comment. This is my intention, what I want to do. So ignore it, nothing to worry about. So that's what you can just put it into an hash, and this is now going to be a comment. Now if I do a shift enter, you can notice that it worked. Okay, this is a comment. Now, sometimes we want to write into my notebook properly. Means, let's say I want to define basically this value here. I want to write something in detail. For example, I just want to say changing variable. Okay, if I do this, changing variable. So now if I want to do this, if I do this much, the thing is that if I just do a shift enter, it is going to be looking like a normal column for me. But what I want to do is I want to make my notebook appear like some sort of book. right? That's why it's called as notebook. I want to make it very code readable, very much kind of readable context. So what I can do, so where I have put the changing variable, I just select this cursor, and from here I can select the C. Right now it is code here. You can see this part. This is a code here, right? So I'm kind of talking about this component. You can see that it's currently as a part of your code. Now, what I want to do here, I would select here, I would change my selection now. So what I'm going to do, instead of code, I'm going to select now markdown. Okay, I'm going to select markdown. Can you see the color change happen? This means that I'm going to assign a heading. Okay, this means I'm going to assign a heading. Now, this is basically when I put a hash, it makes it like a heading for me. But let's say I want to add something. I am going to, let's say I write something. I'm going to change my variable, right? And now if I do a shift enter, let's see how it will look like. Can you see? This is awesome. It is showing me here perfectly fine a kind of a heading note, and then basically what I'm trying to do here. So I can create a kind of a very nicely written books here while kind of executing it. So this is the way you will be kind of working with your Jupyter notebooks. Now, going back to the same portion which we were kind of looking at. So this is some notebook which I have already created for you. So we will understand that one by one. So first thing is like, as we have already seen here that this will be a cell available for me. So I can say here like print of some string, right? So it is going to print out some value of string for me. Like it's going to print out welcome to the word of Python. Right? So you can see that it's going to print out welcome to the word of Python. Now, secondly, now what I want is I want to this time print in a different way. I want to say hello, okay? And after that, I want to go to the next line. So next line is denoted by a special character in Python called as /n. /n. You can see it here, /n. /n means new line character. So as soon as your code encounters this /n, it will assume that you want to write this let's into a next line. Look at this, what's going to happen when you will execute this. So if I execute this, you will notice that after hello, LETS is starting from the next line. Why? Because before that I have put this special character /n, which means that go to the next line. So this is also how I can define my print statements. Now let's see, we have already seen that how to create a variable, right? Let's now go and explore this in a little more detail, that how we can define this. So here, let's say I'm defining a value of variable x by 5, and in second y variable, I'm assigning the value as techlove. So I'm just assigning two values. So you can see that in x, I'm defining my numeric value, and in y, I'm defining my string value. Let's execute this statement. Now, if I print the value x, you can see that it returned me 5. But now in the second code, you will notice that this is going to throw me an error, right? Why? Because Python code is case sensitive. Case sensitive means if you have a small x variable, you cannot just say capital X and print it up. So if you say capital X, see, it is going to throw you an error. It will complain that X is not defined. And yes, that's true because it's case sensitive. So keep this in mind while working on it. There's one more thing. There are some particular keywords. Keywords are like some very specific words for which the definition is predefined in Python. Now, those you cannot use it as a variable. For example, try. Okay. So like for example, if I will try to say try is equal to 1, you will notice that it is going to throw you an error. Why? Because try is a specific keyword being given to Python. So it is basically already it have a separate meaning in Python itself. So as soon as you say try, it start looking at that Python meaning what Python have given to it, right? So Python have given a specific meaning to this try statement keyword, and that's what it will try to search. And since you are trying to override it here, it will just complain what you're trying to do. So that's the reason you got an error. Now you might be wondering that how to know that what are the keywords available which I can't use it as a variable name. So in order to do that, you can easily just say import keyword. Okay, this is a library. So import, as soon as I use in Python, it is basically used to kind of import a package. Means some library is there, you want to import it here. You can think of it like this, that in C programming, if you're coming from that background, you might have used hash include stdoih, right? Similarly, in your Java also you have import statements. Similarly, in Python also you have to call some packages in order to work on it. Now, so you are going to import this package called as keywords. Now in keywords, we have something called as KW list function. So as soon as I say print keyword.kw list function, it is going to print out all the available functions which are predefined in your Python, and you cannot use it as a variable name. Now in the third code line, I have said that total number of keywords, comma, length of this. Length is again a function defined in your Python. And what this function do is it is going to return that how many total number of keywords are there. So let's see this output first. If I execute it, so you can see that it is returning me all the particular keywords which are by default available in Python. If you want, you can do it as a homework activity. Try to create variables with these names, okay? And you will notice that it is going to throw you an error. You can notice this. We have tried already with this try variable and it threw us an error, right? That's the reason. Now notice this last line. This is getting printed from this part. So what this length is doing, it is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and keep on count, and these are 33. So there are total 33 keywords which is available. So that's what this length function will do for you. Okay. So there are more often like a lot of functions being available to us which we can easily use it in Python. That's the best part of Python part. Now notice this portion. I have already created a variable called as x above, right? X, the value I have assigned it as 5. Now what happens in any programming language, when you create a variable x, right? Like you said, x is equal to 5. What actually happened? So this variable gets stored into a address, memory address. So definitely, just like when I say, okay, XYZ person, right? So definitely XYZ person is living at some place. There must be some place on this earth where that person is living, right? Maybe he's staying at Bangalore at this particular latitude, comma longitude. So that's the place where this person kind of resides. Now similarly in Python also, when I say a variable x, definitely it need to occupy some place. Like for example, if any human is there, definitely he will occupy some space on the earth somewhere. Similarly, that this variable x will occupy some space definitely somewhere in the memory. Now that memory will have some address. Like for example, when I say a person x, that person have some address, right? Similarly here also it will have some sort of address being defined. Now, if I want to see that address, that where exactly in what address number this x is defined, I can use a function called as id function. So if I say id and the name of the variable, it is going to return me that what exactly is going to be where my value x is going to reside. You can see this here, that this is my address where my value is particularly going to reside. Now, so this we have just seen. Now one more thing, in your variables there are some restrictions, like it cannot start with a number or some sort of special characters cannot be there. For example, this sort of special characters, if you try to create, you will notice that it will throw you an error. So there are restrictions which you need to kind of take care of. So you can see that otherwise it will complain with a invalid syntax error. Now let's say you have created some variable, you like you said x is equal to 1 or y is equal to techlove. Now you want to figure out, if you notice here, we have not at all given that x is my integer type, or I have not mentioned that y is of string type. So Python is automatically assigning this, right? Python is automatically assigning that what is the value of what. So in this case, if you want to figure out that what's the type of my x, what's the data type of this variable x, so there's a function available in Python called as type. So if you say type of x, it is going to return you basically int, which means that it's going to be an integer value for you. Now similarly for y is equal to techlove, you will notice that it's going to tell me that it's a string for me, right? So it's a type string. Now this let's say this is another thing in variable. A lot of people do this mistake. That's the reason I'm pointing you this. When you're working with Python, you can even assign the values like this together. You could have just said a comma b comma c. That means I'm creating three variables and I'm saying that is equal to 2 comma 2 comma 2. So what it's gonna do, this 2, the first 2 it's gonna assign it to a, then the second 2 it will assign to this, and this 2 is going to be assigned to this. If you print this, it will print you 2 2 2, all good. But if you will try to do in this way, it will throw you an error, because now it will not know that what is the value of b and c you are trying to attain, right? So that's the reason it will just immediately throw me an error, and this may not work. So let's execute and see the statements. So here if I say abc2, you can notice that it's going to throw you an error, and here you will notice that it works perfectly fine, no issue. right? So this is how you can define your variables. You can assign some operator to it. You can check some print statements. Let's see a few more things in the further video lectures.